Yeah.
Jessica Gammell-Bennett, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I'm so glad to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. It's amazing to see your professional and personal background and what you're sharing with the world. You are a psychotherapist and life coach, but you also have a lot of personal journey that you have overcome and very publicly shared, such as struggling as a mom, chronic fatigue, and overcoming cancer. So, with all of these stories, I'll let you tell the story. What was your journey?
Yeah, so I am a mom and a stepmom of four boys. Three of them, well, all of them are neurodivergent. Three of them are on the autism spectrum. Two of them are profoundly gifted. Two of them have a type of autism known as PDA, pathological demand avoidance. I think it's a terrible title. I prefer persistent drive for autonomy. And that experience is what drove me into becoming a family life coach and a psychotherapist because I realized that the systems that we have in place do not work for these children. A lot of autism treatment is what's called ABA or applied behavior analysis. And
What
for
is that?
children with PDA, yeah, applied behavior analysis is like, it's basically training um, with consistent rewards and prompts. It's training children on social cues and basically being able to sort of, fit in with the customs and mores of society. And what we find with PDA children is that when you try and gain compliance from them, they will go into fight or flight. Their sympathetic nervous system will get triggered. Their threat response will get triggered. And you will see them either have an epic tantrum, and it can be pretty epic. It can involve throwing things, it can involve screaming, it can just a rage like you've never seen. It can also involve just completely shutting down. So we know the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, this is takes us back to, let's say, in ancient times, we were being chased by a tiger. Okay. Our body is going to do one of four things. Or actually, I'll use an even better example. Let's say our village is attacked by invaders. This is a better example. Our body is we're going to do one of four things. We're going to fight. We're going to stand and fight. We're going to take flight, right? Okay. We're going to freeze, play dead, basically, or we're going to fawn. We're going to make nice with the invaders so they don't kill us. Okay. Our body's still designed like this. Our nervous system is still designed like this. So the people pleasers, those are the fawners. The people who are sort of avoidant and sort of run, okay, from a conflict, those are the runners. People who get triggered and have tantrums and rages, those are the fighters. You don't really have control over which one you do. So
Right.
with kids who have PDA, you'll see them, first of all, they'll have issues when they're very young going to like preschool, for example. Okay. These are the kiddos that you'll see screaming in front of the school because they don't want to go in the school. And what are all the people around the kid trying to do? They're trying to gain compliance from him. They're not understanding that his or her threat response has been activated. So what we know about these kiddos and what the research is starting to show us is that they are genetically predisposed to have higher cortisol levels. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So what happens is they're already up here with their stress hormone, right? And then a demand is made of them, and then their sympathetic nervous system gets triggered like this. Now, children who have trauma can do this too. So I had this child that sort of was a preschool dropout. At one point, he wouldn't even leave the house. I had to shut down my holistic practice, become a stay at home mom, and figure out how to help this child. I did the research and I realized that he had high cortisol levels. I started giving him magnesium, and it was a game changer. So suddenly his debilitating anxiety was much better. He wasn't tantruming far as much as he was in the beginning when he was 3 years old. And over time, I learned how to make demands of him. For example, using a lot of if then strategies. You can have your TV time after your room is clean, these kind of things. And in my clinical practice now as a psychotherapist, I work in community based family health as well. I work with a lot of these children, and I have a theory. And this might sound crazy, but I think this is the next step of our evolution. I think these children have a persistent drive for autonomy because this is like how the species is going to evolve. So if we want systems that give people the personal freedom that they need to be of service to the world in the way that they want to, and not always have to be about compliance. We're going to have humans walking around on this earth who are not going to be so easily compliant. And once I started to see it through that framework, everything changed. Everything changed for me.
You're saying that the systems need to adapt to the way kids are instead of so it's too hard to change kids to fit the mold of a system that really developed decades ago and hasn't changed that much. Do you think
Absolutely.
so?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of compliance based systems. I was a high school teacher too, so I have experience with this. And I found that I got the best results when I did not expect compliance. I built relationships, I built connection, I gave choices, I gave that freedom for people to be their authentic self, right? And students appreciated it, you know? These kids are not easy to raise, I will tell you that. So if people listening to your podcast recognize this, my heart is with you. It
Thank you so
will
much.
go ahead.
No, I just want to thank you so much for saying that for a second. I think that families need that because we are sometimes surrounded by professionals who are wondering how a child can fit the mold, or at least there are some people who will assume the parents should just do this and do that and then everything will be okay. But you're acknowledging
Right.
it's a struggle. It simply will be.
It simply will be, and the thing is, so my child has in the States, I don't know, you probably have this in Australia, but we have IEPs, individualized education programs. So my 10-year-old has one of those, and he has gifted services as well. So he gets social emotional help, and he gets the gifted services, and there's a whole lot of extra help that he's getting. But he's thriving now. And the thing that I had to realize was I wasn't going to make him fit the mold. I had to go to the school and get the school to fit him. And it's a public school, but he the special education team at his school was willing to work with me. They respected my background, my credentials, that I was his mother and I knew him best. And they let me be a part of creating that education plan with them collaboratively. The child is thriving. So I think we need to really not be afraid to challenge systems, especially
We
for our
need
children
to.
on behalf.
I
Yeah.
think this is one of the most transformational recordings that I've done, to be honest with you.
Yay.
I am wondering, I can assume the school listened to you even more because you also have the professional background. And I'm wondering, what advice do you have to parents where some people out there will not they won't they won't apply the same weight or credibility to a parent who doesn't have the mainstream qualifications. Some of us came from very intelligent backgrounds in other areas, other specialties, and we might just not have that particular specialty. So I'm wondering, what can parents do to really be heard? Do they need to find the right expert to back them up? Do they need to find some online resources to back up what they're saying? What can they do?
Absolutely. So it's interesting. Like in the UK, they have schools for PDA children. So they're much more advanced than we are in the States. There's an organization in the States called PDA North America. That's a great resource because what parents can do is they can basically bring resources from that website. They're spearheading the effort to get it recognized in the States into the school. And what they need to know is if you're in the States, okay, federal law mandates that once a parent contacts a principal and requests an evaluation for an individualized education plan, they have 90 days to comply with that evaluation. 90 days. They have to get it done. Those are your legal rights. And if you do not get compliance from the principal on getting an evaluation for your child, you need to go to the school board. And if that doesn't work, then you need to go to the media, whatever. But everyone knows in the States that this is a federal law and they're mandated to do it. So I have never had a parent, you know, not be able to find somebody who would finally say, yeah, we need to do the evaluation on this child. The thing about PDA kids is they are so smart usually that they will not appear to have autism, like, they won't have the red flags, you know?
Right.
And so that's the greatest challenge. I had to take my son to a specialist in Massachusetts, and I live in North Carolina, that's quite a trip.
How far away is
Um,
that? Just for context.
it's a plane ride, yeah, it's like the
Oh, a
Southern
plane ride.
United States to the Northern United States. Yeah, I had to take him all the way to
Gosh,
Boston.
that's a
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah, it's a trip. Um So what I would say is lean on the regulations, lean on the law, lean on your rights. Um, and you have to just keep pushing. You have to keep pushing, get your resources, look up pathological demand avoidance, try and find a therapist that will help you. Try and find a therapist. And if you say you have Medicaid, which in this country is like, what low income families have, a lot of my clients in community based family services have Medicaid. Um, if you have Medicaid, then you can get a lot of organizations to help you. You can get free clinical therapy. There are resources for you, and you can get care managers to help you. So there are advocates, social workers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so I'm a therapist, but my what I studied was clinical social work. Social workers are probably your best bet because they're so resource rich. Social workers are trained to be really rich in resources and finding new resources. So if you're in the States, look for somebody who is an LCSW. Licensed clinical mental health counselors are also excellent because they're very holistic in their training. They're going to want to look at exercise, mindfulness, right? Like nutrition, those lifestyle elements as well. Nutrition's super important for these kids.
It really is. Would you say that wherever someone is in any country, people with those sorts of specialties are going to look at the whole picture and check what in the environment needs to change instead of just putting it all on the child or the individual to change?
And the thing is, these children who are struggling are the canaries in the coal mine. Right? So you remember the canary in the coal mine, the miners would bring the canary down in the cage, and if the canary died, then the air was toxic, okay? So children who are people who are canaries in a coal mine are just showing you what's wrong with the system. They're just more sensitive. And that sensitivity is actually a beautiful thing because it's showing us where we need to change. So if a child is struggling in a system, it's not the child, it's the system that needs to change.
I need to ask, have you ever seen someone feeling a bit scared of becoming a whistleblower or standing up to people in authority who are maybe trying to cover their backs, maybe just don't want to change, don't want to admit they don't know everything? Have you seen people facing those sorts of challenges, and how do you navigate that?
Yeah, yeah, I have. Yes, I absolutely have. And the thing is, unfortunately, the more income you have, the more power you have. We all know that, okay? And that's why we need to find advocates. So If you feel that you don't have the power to stand up against someone who's just not listening to you, say a I don't know, a principal, and I'm very pro, public education. I was a public high school teacher, so I'm not, throwing shade at educators at all. I love educators. I was an educator. Um, but I've also been on the side of being a parent, right? And I've been very blessed in my journey with my child in the public school system. But I have seen some of my clients in community based that have not been so blessed. And I would say that's when you have to find an advocate for you. There are organizations that will help and assist parents who have special needs children whose rights are not being respected. And so reach out to them. Um, Find those resources. Call, your local department. People are scared of social services, because, oh, they're the baby snatchers, whatever. But actually, most people that work in these professions do genuinely want to help, and so they will have resources. They will know about organizations that you can contact and connect to get help with advocacy.
If someone wants to become an advocate, is that
Yeah.
something that mainly the medical people should be becoming, or have you seen anyone with lived experience exploring some sort of way to advocate for others after they've seen, okay, this is how the system works. I wanted to share what I learned about navigating the system, share that with more people and help for more problems to be solved. Have you seen that happening?
Absolutely. So the most powerful and the largest local organizations that I've noticed are parents who have special needs children whose children's needs have not been attended to properly, and they've had to become advocates, and they kind of create these organizations on Facebook and in person where they band together to do the research. And they're usually like Facebook groups or so, groups on social media where one mom can post in the group and say, hey, this is what happened today, help. And then all the other moms will jump in and be like, okay, this is what you need to do, this is who you need to call, this is and that's going to be your best way. So knowledge is power, numbers are power, right? And I think that's how we're going to start to see a sea change. The most powerful people are parents, especially mothers. Those are the people who are going to make these changes. And when we support each other, because, in the culture, there's a lot of, I think, moms are pitted against each other, whether it's over working mom versus stay at home mom, breastfeeding versus formula, like all the things, right? And I think if we can cut through that and not allow ourselves to be pitted against each other and just support each other and connect through our common humanity, which is our love for our children and our wanting the best for our children, I think that's where our power comes from. And we can create these groups. If you can't find a group, create it, because there's somebody else out there who wants to be part of that group and who feels like they're alone, and they need to know that they're not.
I feel so positively overwhelmed by that because you're not the first one to recently tell me, reach out to the other people in similar situations.
Yeah.
So, also, what I saw in what you were saying was that we need to unite despite our differences, and that could go beyond mothers. But I wanted to add another category to that, to what you said, because I was hearing from people on both ends of the political spectrum who just want everybody to be okay. And I'm very concerned at the moment that there are some people who need a bit of reassurance. And if you do genuinely show them, look, these some people are from different political groups or social groups, but they're just as concerned about precisely the same thing about everybody being okay. Do you agree that we all need to just get over our differences to help?
So it's so funny that you asked me this question because I posted a video to my Instagram this evening, and it was about this moment. And I, wanted to just say what's happening in the consciousness. The thing is, the way that you lose power is to focus on differences. and to allow yourself to be polarized, right? It's their fault, right? Because their beliefs are different than mine. The way that you gain power is to connect to people, especially when they have different beliefs, and join together on what you share. So, going back to parenting, mothers, right? On all sides of the political spectrum. But it's also realizing that this is how we are disempowered is by arguing over our differences.
Do you think that's deliberate?
Absolutely. Of course it is. Yeah. I mean, think about Hunger Games, right? So why was Katniss the leader of a resistance movement? Because she didn't ascribe to the game,
I
right?
didn't watch The Hunger Games. I know that I should have.
That's okay.
So I'm living under a
It's
rock. I think I should have seen it. But for those who didn't watch
yeah.
the show, I maybe translate that a little bit more for a second.
So the Hunger Games, the premise of it was basically you had wealthy people who lived in the capital, okay, and they were gorging themselves on food. And then you had really, really, really poor people who lived in the districts, I think it was called. It's been a while. And the idea was they would pick somebody from each district and they would make them play the Hunger Games. They would, you probably hear a violent volunteers tribute, right? Um, and they would pit them against each other, okay, for sport. And the reason was because the people in the capital knew that as long as the people in the districts were fighting each other, they wouldn't be able to stand up and rise up against the people who are in control. So it's the same thing. If you're fighting other people based on your beliefs, you're not coming together with them to change things and to make things better. You're too busy spending your energy fighting.
Yeah, I think that's crucial to understand right now. And I can be vague in sharing that months ago, I I saw someone who's becoming just over here very obsessed with the American politics and
Yeah.
increasingly anxious, scared, and constantly wondering who around me, as in who around here will be not actually as trustworthy as we can assume, who has an intention I don't know about. And it was almost becoming a bit paranoid. And
Yeah.
I'm really worried that the current climate is sort of encouraging that instead of just connecting and chilling out and being a bit human.
So the thing is, the way that people have always been controlled is by putting them into fear. And so the opposite of fear is love, is safety, right? And when people allow themselves to fall into fear, they lose their power. And that's kind of the point of rhetoric and getting people to be divided and fight against each other. It's to keep them in fear, it's to keep them disempowered. So, to your point, if your friend was really like worried and becoming, sounds like paranoid, um, they were falling right into the trap, right? And so it's going to take people deciding not to allow themselves to be possessed by fear, basically. I use the word possessed intentionally too, because it is almost like a possession when someone's that afraid. And people will
Because
say,
you're
well,
not
no
yourself
reason to be
anymore.
afraid. Sorry?
Is it, sorry for jumping in, I was just keen to ask, is it because they're
Please.
basically not themselves anymore?
Yeah. If you think of it, and if you want to use science, we'll use science. Okay. So going back to fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Yeah. What rhetoric can do is it can activate cortisol, the stress hormone. It can trigger you to go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn in your sympathetic nervous system. And then, yes, you are no longer in your prefrontal cortex, your logical problem solving part of your brain that, by the way, also bonds with other humans, okay, and has mirror neurons. This is why babies and mothers, this is how they bond, okay? Now you are in your reptilian brain, right? So your caveman brain, if you want to call it, okay? You're in the amygdala. And the amygdala is your fight or flight. It's I'm in danger. So if we want to keep people disempowered, we create fear, we keep them in their amygdala. And yes, they're not even in their right mind. They're not in their right mind. They're not in their prefrontal cortex, which is logical and would question things and also would use its mirror neurons to bond with other humans and problem solve to make things better. This is actually evolutionary how we survived. It was by being communal people and helping each other. Yes, we had tribes that attacked each other, but we wouldn't have survived as a species if we didn't also have communities of people that helped each other thrive and survive.
I was so keen to divert a little bit to community to look at your own healing in a moment. But
Yeah.
until that, I'm wondering if community or looking for some sort of guidance can also help us see our own blind spots in all of this.
Absolutely. I think everybody should have at least one friend who can call you on your crap. I have a group of girlfriends, and we can be very honest with each other and be like, you're not seeing this. Or, when you said this to me, like it triggered this in me. Being self-reflective and then being in community with other people who are self-reflective is how you will improve and you will see your blind spots.
Awesome. Get someone who's going to be honest.
Yeah, don't just be friends with people who just say, who just validate you no matter what. Because there are times when you shouldn't be validated. There are times you should be challenged.
Interesting. And so getting back to community now, I can see that through that and other things, you overcame cancer. What sort of cancer did you have? What happened? How long ago was that? I'm really curious.
Yeah, so I had invasive squamous cell carcinoma, so it started on the skin and then it invaded and went into the lymph nodes. Um, and I want to tell the whole story because the community part is really important to me. So my sister Laura, and I had very different gifts. I'm what's called clairsentient, so I can feel energy since I was a little girl. I've always been able to walk into a room and tell you who was sad, who was mad, what was going on. My sister was very clairvoyant. She could read auras. I mean, she could close her eyes and see, and I could never do that. I would close my eyes and see nothing. I mean, it's just like, okay, my eyes are closed, I see nothing. And so when I founded my healing system in 2020, it was right when the pandemic hit. It was interesting. I would feel a new healing symbol come in, and I would text my sister or call her and say, "Hey, I have a new healing symbol coming in. I can't see it. What is it?" And she would text me back within 5 minutes and say, "It's this and this." So in early June of 2023, I felt this healing symbol coming in very strongly. I felt, for me, it feels like energy just coming into my energy field. It's very strong. Like if you had your body against a speaker that was really loud. You know that feeling where like the music is bumping? That's what it
You
feels
can
like to me.
feel the sort of vibration, so to speak,
Yes.
really close to a speaker. I know that feeling. So basically,
Yes.
you had a feeling, and everybody, whether they believe in this sort of thing or not, sometimes you just have a bit of a suspicion or a gut instinct, some kind of wondering.
Right. And so I knew, because I'd been working with my healing system for quite a while by then, I knew it was a healing symbol coming in. And I texted my sister. I said, "What is this?" And she wrote back, "It's a wrench and a rose." And it was like, okay. I said, "Well, after," because her birthday was coming up. Her birthday was June 20th. And this was probably around like June 14th, maybe. I'm not sure. And I said, "After your birthday, let's figure out what this healing symbol does." And she was like, "Okay, no problem." And she ended up having a fatal heart attack on July 14th before we had a chance to figure out what the symbol was for.
Fatal heart attack, she died.
She died. She was 54 years old. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And you can imagine the shock. Um, and so, we had the funeral and all all the things that you do when someone dies, and I wrote the obituary and all that, and did a eulogy with my niece, and then I had had these pains, and I was ignoring them because I was busy. I was in grad school getting my degree. I had a baby. No, he was 2 by this time. I had a young child, I had another child. It's just I was busy. And this is another thing is like if you have a pain, like don't ignore it, go to the doctor. And I just kept ignoring it, kept ignoring it. And finally it was so painful that I ended up going to the doctor. And on August 10th, I was diagnosed with invasive squamous cell carcinoma.
Invasive.
And sorry?
Invasive, so it had
Mm,
spread.
it did
So
spread. Right. It
what
started
was
on the
so it went from
skin.
the skin to the insides.
Exactly, you got it. And then it went into the lymph nodes. So I had what's called a PET scan, and they diagnosed me as stage 4, which,
Is that
stage 4 is the worst. Sorry?
the top level? It's the worst.
The top
I'm
level,
just
it's the
I
worst.
apologize, I'm
Correct.
translating it for those who don't know the terminology so we can
Yep,
really follow your story and
yep.
absorb it.
Yeah, no, thank you, I appreciate that. So if stage 4 is the worst, stage 4 is game over. So I have a conversation with the oncologist, and he says they're only gonna offer palliative care. And I have a 2-year-old, right? And so everything in my being said, "This is wrong. This isn't right. I don't think this is right." And it wasn't denial. It wasn't denial. Like, I was like, "Well," and everybody around me was like, "Well, maybe you're in denial." And they were gentle about it. I just lost my sister. And I went to the doctor that I went to get the diagnosis, and I started crying, and I said, "I know this isn't stage 4." And she said, "I don't think it is either, and I'm gonna explain why. If it was stage 4, because I had these lymph nodes under my arms lit up on the PET scan, and the cancer was down low, okay? And she said if it was stage 4, there would be a trail from the original cancer site up to your lymph nodes, and there's not." And she said, "So I'm gonna go to the board, and I'm gonna fight for you to have treatment." And I was just bawling, of course. Um, and so I go home, and we're waiting on, this to happen. In the meantime, people were sending me roses. Remember the wrench and the rose? My sister said the symbol was a wrench and a rose because my sister had died. They were sending me real actual roses. They were sending me candles in the shape of a rose. My screensaver on my computer all of a sudden popped up, and it was roses out of nowhere. Like, I didn't make it do that. And then my 2-year-old started going to his dad's toolbox and bringing me wrenches. And I said, Why are you bringing me these?" And he said, "It's from Aunt Wawa. She told me to bring it to you." He said, "She tell me bring this you," like, in his 2-year-old language. And I was like, "Oh my God." And so I immediately texted everybody that I loved. And I said, "Hey, I think this is a symbol to heal me. Will you send it to me?" And they wrote back and said, "Yeah, but what does it look like?" So I went to my 10-year-old, who's a pretty gifted artist, and I said, "Hey, there's a symbol, a wrench in the rose. Can you draw it for me?" And he said, "Yeah, mommy, sure." So he drew it, and in the center of the symbol that he drew was an infinity symbol, and he said, "Mommy, this represents love." He said, "It has no beginning and no end." He said, "Send this to people who love you, they'll heal you." And I was like, "Okay." So I took a picture of what he drew, and I sent it to all those people, and they started sending me this symbol. And I realized in that moment how many people I had in my life that knew how to send energy healing. I was probably over 100. They were former clients, they were friends, they were relatives, and I could feel the tumor shrinking in real time. And so I went from being in a lot of pain, I mean a lot of pain, to tolerable. And so the board voted, and my doctor, her name is Dr. Sarah Fox, she's amazing. She persevered, and she got them to agree to treat me. They overturned the stage 4 diagnosis. They said that the oncologist who had diagnosed me had only been on the job for a couple months. He was brand new, and he basically didn't know how to read a PET scan.
Gosh.
Yeah,
I want to fix my light for 1 second to make sure this is the best it can be. Thanks. So, you're saying that it's very legitimate to sometimes question an expert's or a professional's opinion because sometimes they are not as well, they don't know as much as you might assume they know.
absolutely. And look what I did. I got somebody to advocate for me. I didn't have any power in that system. That was a medical system that I was not a part of. I found a surgeon to fight for me,
Surgeon who
and
went
she
to
did.
the top. You brought it to the board. So,
Brought it
it's
to the
not
board.
simply, "I
Mhm.
want another doctor," it's, "Let's go to the board."
Yeah. And she was a mother. She knew I had young children. There we go. There's that connection. You see what I mean? I don't know what her political beliefs are, but we were mothers, and she knew I had a 2-year-old, and she had to keep me alive. So she fought
She
for
saw
me.
it was needed. She
Mhm.
fought for you.
Yeah. So
So,
that's what you have to do. You have to find somebody to fight for you.
and all of these people were sending you all this love and care, and
Yeah.
it was helping you. You
It
know,
was helping me. Yeah.
a lot of people are not religious. I'm not that religious now, but I saw how some communities will pray for each other, or they end up believing that in some sort of communal, united belief, someone can in some way feel better. And it sounds like we can't totally explain how sometimes when a community comes together over something like this, things improve in some way, but it sounds like even beyond that space, you've seen a version of that happening.
So I can explain it in quantum physics. We have life force energy. So when I got pregnant with my now 4-year-old, I felt a swirl of energy coming into my womb. And I knew I was pregnant. I was probably 5 days pregnant. I mean, way before you could take a pregnancy test. It's like what, 2 weeks at least?
But you can just
Um,
know.
yeah, and I was going like this with my hand to see if I could block the energy. I was like, "This is the most amazing thing I've ever experienced." And of course, I wasn't trying to block it, but I was just amazed that I could feel his life force going into my body. I was like, "This is incredible." And of course, I was pregnant. And so everything alive has life force energy. So the trees have life force energy, the plants have life force energy, we have life force energy. And when we get sick, our life force energy is diminished, right? Think of it like a battery. Okay. What happens when a battery runs low, right? The system that's depending on that battery is not going to run optimally. It's going to be sick. Yeah. And so when people send energy healing, they're sending life force energy from the quantum field. That's why you have to use a symbol. So I had one person say, "I'm sending you all of my energy." And I said, "Please don't do that. You'll deplete yourself. Use the symbol." The reason you're using the symbol is because you're pulling the energy out of the quantum field, out of the universe, out of God. Whatever word you want to use is fine. You're not pulling it out of humans. We are channels, right? We are channels for life force energy. And so when we use a symbol, we're basically just being an energy conductor. We're being a channel for that energy. We're not giving away our own energy. And so that's what people were doing is they were using the energy of that symbol. And so what the wrench was doing was it was attacking the cancer cells. And what the rose was doing was it was restoring the tissues that had been damaged by the cancer cells. And so that's what I believe anyway. That's what was happening. So the tumor was shrinking in real time, but it was the love and it was the life force that was coming through that symbol to me from other people using themselves as energy conductors from the quantum field that was shrinking the tumor. And prayer works the same way. Because you think, what are you doing when you pray? You are a channel for divine intervention, right? And so you're not giving that person your life force away. You're asking God, the universe, all whatever name you want to use, right? To intervene on this person's behalf and heal them. That's why it works.
There's something about the power of the collective, and maybe that's what we're coming back to, just like what you said about education and advocacy. And I'm wondering, for those who just haven't wrapped their heads around spirituality or concepts
Yeah.
like this, what can you say? And I think this is really crucial because okay, here's how to put it. Sometimes people get sick and they think they have to be isolated. And there were moments where, in particular situations, maybe in the pandemic or in other things, it
Mm.
made sense. We'll acknowledge that to particular people, it made sense for them in a particular time. However, it sounds like what you're saying is if people are feeling unwell, connect with more people and connect with a community, and it's going to make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, you don't have to be in person. You can send energy healing from anywhere in the planet. There's a quantum physics, it's part of superstring theory, but it's basically the concept of no non-locality. So non-locality is if you have a particle on the west coast of the United States and a particle on the east coast of the United States, and you do something to a particle on the west coast, you're going to have the same reaction to the particle on the east coast. So because we're all connected by quantum energy, okay? So you don't even having positive thoughts about someone can make them better. We're all connected at the quantum level. So, I mean, I think spirituality and science have been separated for too long. It's quantum physics. It really is. I mean, yes, it's spirituality. And I'd say, like, one of my friends, when I was going through treatment, organized all my other friends to make me juice packets. I was juicing while I was going through treatment because my digestive system was a mess from the chemo and I just really couldn't eat. But the juices were a way to get really high quality nutrients into my body and my bloodstream really quickly. But it was exhausting to juice all day. So my friend organized all my other friends and people in our community to make me these juice packets. And so they basically would chop the vegetables and everything. So all I had to do was open a Ziploc bag, dump it in my juicer, and press the button. And
Nice.
so that's the kind of thing, like, we need to be doing for people when they're sick. We are not meant to heal in isolation. We're not meant to live in isolation, right?
We're social creatures, and
Mhm.
you brought it back to food. I think that
Yeah.
that's such a crucial thing, and it has been a
Mhm.
theme within this podcast. Some people were saying if someone looks overstretched, check if they are hydrating, and you're saying juicing really helped. Actually, very recently, I talked on the show with a gut health expert who said that the juices will still have the polyphenols and various things in it, even though you don't have the fiber. So you were absolutely on track. You were still getting something, and it showed people were listening to what you needed. And some communities will try to get everybody to bake a tray of meals for someone, things like that. So,
Right.
are you recommending, especially, I'm guessing that would really help people's mental health as well, to it sounds like part of the solution in all sorts of situations is for communities to break bread together. No, I have to stop using these phrases, but do you think part of it is that people really do need to share food together and also positivity?
Absolutely. I think breaking bread is a great term. I use breaking bread a lot. And as a therapist, this came up in a group supervision the other day about, like, can you take food from clients because you're not supposed to? But I reminded them that breaking bread with other people is a wonderful way to bond with them and connect with them. So yes, if they have made a loaf of something and they want to give you a slice, eat it. Don't turn it down, eat it. Yeah. I think breaking bread with others is a wonderful way to have that communal vibe and to sit down, share a meal. Now you're sharing something, right? You can talk about the food, which is non-polarizing, right? And you
Yes.
get to know each other on a human level. Yeah,
I
and
will
I
add
think
food.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. I was going to say food should not be polarizing. You'd be surprised. There
No.
are the ones who are anti-carbs, the ones who are not
Yeah.
coping with the vegans or whatever. But no, ideally, again, get over all our differences and just share whatever you're into, a cup of tea, anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to be very it's interesting, before cancer, I was a real health nut, and I was like, "No gluten, no milk, no dairy," rather, like, I was doing smoothies every day, I was really a health nut, and then I got cancer anyway. So now I'll enjoy a chocolate chip cookie. I'll treat myself. Do you see what I mean?
You're
And
living
I feel that
life.
I'm happier, you know?
Yeah, actually, my equivalent that I hope aligns with what you're saying is that I am normally such a health nut, but I ended up at a lunch that I was very lucky to squeeze into, and they sent over a big slice of cake, vegan friendly, but cake and ice cream. I hadn't done that in who knows half a year, something like that. And I knew just be with people and live. Do you
Yeah.
think that's what everybody should be doing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Everything in moderation, including moderation, right? So, like, I was living like an aesthetic, like a monk. I was only putting really healthy things in my body, and I got sick anyway. So, like, now I treat myself. I obviously don't go overboard. I've always taken really good care of. Having come off of chronic fatigue and all that, I still, I'm pretty healthy. We cook very healthy at home, but I treat myself. I give myself that treat because for me, this is a very strange thing, and my friend tells me that I'm like a child, but I love getting a hot cup of coffee and taking a chocolate chip cookie and dunking it in the coffee. And you
Okay.
get a spoon and you fish out the parts that have melted and gone to the bottom. It's amazing.
It's something. Look, why not? There's a place near here that puts a miniature Oreo next to the coffees.
Oh,
For me,
yes.
that's putting on the edge, but I'm speaking your language now. So you do the little treats, but
Mhm.
moderation in moderation.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
mentioned the fatigue. And you have so many stories, and we might have to add an extra 15, 20 minutes on
yeah.
because there's so much going on here. What happened with the fatigue?
Yeah, so the chronic fatigue, I was sick for about 10 years. I was told I would never have children. I was having a lot of gynecological issues with it. I won't go too in depth. But I was told by this professor at Duke University where I was going to try and get some help. He said I would rule out having children. And of course, that was like a knife in my heart. If you don't want them, that's fine. But if you really want them and somebody says that, then it's. And what I came to find was that I was severely mineral depleted. And so I started doing research on immunity and like how do you improve your immunity? And I started supplementing with zinc and I also got my iron levels back in gear. So I have low ferritin. So we're supposed to be able to store iron as ferritin. So we eat a steak and then our body takes that iron and it stores it as ferritin. And then our body can use that ferritin to make hemoglobin and whatever else we need. Well, my body doesn't do that. And so some people have low ferritin and it means they don't store iron. So they're going to have to supplement it. Now you have to be careful because iron, you can overdose on iron. But when I started basically doing zinc, iron, and B vitamin supplementation, and of course, like lots of greens and smoothies and eating more vegetables, my chronic fatigue went away. And so for me,
That is
I was
awesome.
mineral depleted.
So it was a mix of the supplements and
Mm.
the leafy greens.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And just eating better, um, getting the zinc levels up, getting the iron levels up. And interestingly, now I know that these are magnesium, zinc, and iron, are really important for dopamine. And people who are ADHD are very low in dopamine. And so what we have going, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, just dots are joining so much, and I just feel like you're explaining everything to me. So, I think that it's it's teaching me. I'm hoping a lot of people need to hear this, so just keep teaching. Go for it.
Yay, yay. Okay, good. You want to try and find a functional medicine doctor if you can, because you don't want to just start supplementing with iron. You can overdose. Minerals you can overdose with. But I can tell you that anxiety, the number one supplement for anxiety is magnesium. And I'm going to tell you why. Because anxiety can be caused by cortisol levels that are too high, and magnesium brings down cortisol levels. So, yeah, so a lot, I would say Clients that start supplementing with magnesium, I would say 95% are able to get off of their anti-anxiety medications.
That is
Mhm.
significant.
Yeah, and 98% of the body's biological processes are dependent on adequate magnesium, and so what happens is when you have stress, your body, releases cortisol, right? And so what happens when you release cortisol is cortisol depletes magnesium. So you get yourself in this terrible loop where you're anxious, okay? And so your cortisol levels are going up, so your magnesium's getting depleted, but because your magnesium is low, you're anxious. It's a loop. So when you supplement with magnesium, you lower those cortisol levels, you get yourself out of there's fight, flight, or freeze again. Okay, you get yourself into a calm state, all right? And then the anxiety goes away.
You mentioned how some of these levels can be an issue for people with ADHD, and
Mhm.
that label is very much a trend in public conversation these days, ADHD. But I'm
Yeah,
wondering, do you see people who, okay, first of all, is ADHD a spectrum, kind of like how autism is a spectrum? Can
sure.
people be a little bit ADHD, and is it possible that a lot of adults or anyone might be a little bit ADHD and not realizing it?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. So with ADHD, you're going to see different things. If you have people who struggle with what's called executive function, okay, so again, here's that prefrontal cortex, okay, that's
Is
the
that
part of
things
our
like
brain that,
remembering your keys? Sorry, I
sorry,
interrupted. Is it things like
no,
remembering your keys?
yes, exactly, yeah. So that's an executive function is also like, I know how to do this process. I have to do this step one, step two, step three, step four. And so if you see a kiddo or an adult who like keeps forgetting to do things or has trouble with like doing multiple steps of a process, that's executive function. That's a sign of ADHD. And so if you have hyperactivity, that can be a sign of ADHD as well. We also know that, so here's what makes dopamine in the brain: adequate levels of minerals and B vitamins, okay, exercise, and specifically what we call compression exercise. So, jumping in a trampoline is about the most amazing thing you can do for a neurodivergent child because, yeah, it's going to produce dopamine. Okay, so you want to run, you want to swim, or you want to jump. That's how you're going to basically get the most dopamine into the brain into an ADHD child. And so jumping on a trampoline is an incredible thing because it gives them dopamine. They're outside. I doubt they're in the house on a giant trampoline, right? Um, and it's compression activity. So what compression activity does is it resets the nervous system from fight, flight, freeze to a calm state. And it's really good for your heart. I mean, compression, running, swimming, and jumping are about the best things you can do for for your heart, strengthening your heart and your aerobic exercise. So, like, if I have a family that has a child with ADHD, I'm like, okay, how can we work on a plan to get you a trampoline? And I had a family that put a trampoline on layaway for like 3 months and finally got it. And it made such a difference in their child's behavior. They couldn't believe it. 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes after school every day. The child was able to sit down and do his homework. And before that, it was a 2 hour battle every day. He got his
My
homework
goodness.
done in 15 minutes.
That's a message worth spreading in itself because it's a simple, practical thing. And I think I'd very, with some caution, go into Facebook Marketplace, things like that, to
Right.
find someone who's
Yeah,
getting rid of a trampoline that's in good shape. But
exactly.
it sounds like you would almost, it sounds like you would perhaps recommend that people should seek funding if they need that to get a trampoline.
If they can, yeah, if they can get state funding. So a lot of the department stores have layaway programs. I know like Walmart over here is a big chain, and that's what my family did is they did layaway at Walmart for 3 months so they could get that trampoline. Yeah.
Even if someone plans ahead to get a trampoline when they can, but
Mm.
that's just, that's great to know that there's a solution and it's fun.
It's fun, and get in there with your kids. It is so much fun. There's so much you can do in a trampoline. You can run around and chase each other. You can play crack the egg where somebody, like, goes like this and the other people jump and they have to make you, like, let go. You can throw a football into the trampoline and jump and catch it, and somebody if you're a parent who can't get in a trampoline, you can stand on the outside and throw a football, and the kid can throw the football back to you. Like, there's just so much you can do.
Practical question here. On the other side of the world where I am, we're getting into the summer and
Yeah.
it's worth asking. Oh, look, I'm looking forward to it. Seriously. I love the sun and the water. But I'm wondering, you said swimming. Does this mean proper swimming in a pool instead of just go to the waves and let them splash on you? Really move around and swim.
Yeah, yeah. So if you want that aerobic exercise and you want that dopamine hit, you want to swim hard. You want to really swim. And the one thing about swimming, I would say, is something you could do your whole life. It's non weight bearing, right? So it's not going to hurt your joints. At some point, running might be too much for, once you get to a certain age because it's hard on your joints, right? But swimming is something you could do your entire life. And it is so good for you. Having said that, I will say going in the ocean is very healing. I mean, it's incredibly healing. I went in the ocean a lot when I was sick, um, and I would feel
So
so much
both.
better when I got out of it.
I totally relate to that. So it sounds like both have their benefits. Try both.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
and I think, like, surfing, like, where I live on the coast, we have surfers, and that's really good exercise because you're in the ocean, you're having to paddle really hard, right, to get out there, and then to catch that wave, you're popping up, I mean, it's really good exercise, actually.
okay, I'll keep that in mind. I think there's some sort of program near here called Surfing on the Spectrum, something like that. And I think I have to see, okay, look, what are people up to with all that?
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I must say, I felt so nervous about surfing myself, but I'm impressed by people who do. I'm wondering, do you surf?
I tried it a couple times. I gave it a real go for a whole summer and I kept getting kicked off and, like, I felt like I was in a washing machine. And the last time I remember I stood up on the beach and I was dizzy, and I was like, I don't think I could do this. But I have lots of friends that do.
Fair enough. So if it works for some people, then get into it, but it's okay if some things are easier for us than others.
Absolutely.
We've looked at almost everything. So it sounds like some of the common themes are to look at the nutrients and see a doctor if we're in a mood, check that we're getting the vitamins and minerals that we need, but also connect
Absolutely.
with people to heal ourselves and
Yeah.
to remind listeners of the school side of things, find advocates, whether it's so in both the school situation and your personal health, you're looking for advocates. It sounds like they are some of the key things that people can do.
Absolutely. Yeah. You need to find advocates. You need to find connection and advocacy, I would say. We are designed to be communal. We really are. Like, we're built as a species to be communal. And we're also built as a species to have advocates, right? There have always, throughout history, been leaders. There have always been people who fought for and stood up for other people. We're designed that way. We're designed to be that way. So you can always find somebody to advocate for you.
And you can become a voice like what you're doing. People can become a voice to share the truth.
Absolutely. And if you can't find it, make it. Make it. I've seen parents do that. I've seen them create groups when they couldn't find a group to join.
Sounds like a good idea, and it's easy enough to do just to bring people together.
Mhm, exactly. Come up with a name. Yeah.
Easy. Are there any final thoughts that you want people to keep in mind as the last thing they heard from this conversation with you?
Yeah, I think just really trying to keep common humanity in mind and trying to stay out of fear and trying to lean into each other and being open-minded, listening to others. I think that goes a long way. Even if you don't think you will disagree, I mean, even if you think you'll disagree, listening to others' opinions and trying to understand where they're coming from, I think is how we can move forward.
Jessica Gammell-Bennett, thank you for so much wisdom on so many topics. It has been a
You're
real treat.
welcome. Oh, thank you, Melanie. I really appreciate you.